These Minnesota companies have supplied goods and services to produce and distribute this videotape. 100% of the proceeds benefits flood victims.
It's comparable in some places to the snow that we had in 1969.
First, the snow.
Who expected this kind of snowfall and this kind of moisture?
Then, the thaw.
This is pathetic!
Yes, we are Norwegian, and yes, we help each other.
Temperatures plunge to zero.
Out of nowhere, a raging blizzard.
Floodwaters freeze.
Ken Visser and his family tried to cut the animals out with a chainsaw.
Then thaw again.
Please, please, more people, more people.
It doesn't look good.
At any minute, the Red River, which is at its highest height in history, could destroy all of Breckenridge.
All within 2 weeks.
Everybody needs to move out.
You think this will never happen here?
This is unbelievable.
Pretty much devastated. There isn't a lot left.
Then, this.
Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, it does. Fire sweeps through buildings in downtown Grand Forks.
Ultimately, more than 50,000 people are forced to leave their homes and businesses.
No one is showering. No one is cooking food.
As the Red River Valley is submerged in the worst flooding in 500 years.
The city of Brenna Falls is evacuating areas.
In the next hour, you'll meet some of those people.
What are you going to move if you had to leave in 20 minutes?
And hear their stories.
From the air, the path of the Red River can be seen through the snow, and there is a lot of snow. A winter that produced 7 major blizzards has left a pack that contains up to 7 inches of water. And the Red River is unique in the United States. It runs north. And while spring may be about to break here in Minnesota and North Dakota, where this river is going, it's still frozen in the grip of winter. That's why the last time conditions were like this in 1979, the river backed up, causing the worst flood in more than 100 years.
In a typical front yard of a house, there could be upwards of 2,000 to 3,000 gallons of water stored.
Lorraine and Vin Sullivan have their share of water stacked up in their yard. They've escaped serious flooding in the past, but this time they say they think they may be in trouble, and it will be costly.
We can't foresee what's going to happen. And this flood insurance isn't worth a hill of beans.
Our dikes are good to 50 feet, but who expected this kind of snowfall and this kind of moisture?
East Grand Forks Mayor Lynn Stouse says the dikes protecting the city are old and soft and riddled with gopher holes. There's a potential for a failure and a major disaster.
We're going to ask the people at about 47 feet to evacuate there because we're concerned about their safety.
They've already written off this block of apartments that has just too good a view of the river.
Bill, how you doing? Oh, you're in your night. The flood is going to go about this high here.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so the whole building here, first floor, is going to be underwater, so you people are going to have to move out.
At City Hall, local 8th graders have been busy helping organize what will be, in a few weeks, flood headquarters. These kids have lived by the river all their lives, but this will be the first time they've seen a major flood. A scale showing fish swimming where today birds fly makes the threat a reality.
By then, almost all 3 of the bridges will almost be closed, and so will River Road.
Next week, huge dikes will be thrown up around low-lying neighborhoods. At the University of North Dakota, an internet web page is about to go online to provide up-to-the-minute information. And Chief Weather Forecaster Leon Osborne is putting his money where his mouth is.
Well, I'm buying my flood insurance today. I wish I'd bought it a month ago.
What is known for certain, but is very hard to imagine, is that the Red River is going to rise at least 40 feet in the next few weeks. Where I'm standing will be underwater. What isn't known is at what point it's going to stop rising. With photographer Al Carlson, Jason Davis, Channel 5 Eyewitness News on the road in East Grand Forks.
Happened before.
Sitting in his garage in the back of an old pickup truck, Herb Scott watches the volunteers struggle in the rain to save his town and the home he just refuses to leave.
It ain't gonna get so deep. If it does, well, I'll move upstairs.
Herb Scott's been there a long time. I mean, you take guys like that,
if they don't want to go, they ain't gonna go, but if it gets to a point where they have to, I mean, we'll get them out of there.
The one thing about water, you can't stack it up like hay.
But you can stack sandbags. It's a winner-take-all battle to hold a dike against a runaway Minnesota River. Neighbors helping neighbors they don't even know.
It never ends.
Right now, these volunteers are dog-tired. They can't find all the volunteers they need, and the time is really critical. The Minnesota River over here has 2 more feet to go before it comes over the dike. Then there's another 2 feet of sandbags. But if this dike goes, it's not only Herb Scott's house that's in trouble, it's all of downtown Montevideo.
We're kind of short here, but I got enough bags right now, so.
John Murphy came all the way from the Twin Cities to help.
It sounded like they were desperate, and I almost had second thoughts about it, and then I thought if I had second thoughts, maybe other people would, and nobody would be here,
So here you are.
Here I am.
And here are some reinforcements from across town just in time. At 85, Herb Scott knows time, too, is like a river you can't control.
I got one cousin left. She lives out on 212. Otherwise, I'm the last of the tribe.
The last of his tribe, the last one left on his block. Herb Scott believes time and the river are still on his side. In Montevideo, with photographer Chris Michaels, Tom Lydon, Minnesota 9 News.
Light showers already scattered around our area this morning.
Her transistor radio, for now, is Clara Hersum's only friend.
Oh, they're coming. That's the answer I get. I talked to the police. What the hell is going on?
Flood hotline is 269-8800.
All up and down the block, her neighbors are moving out their belongings. And Clara's still waiting.
Highway 67 east, that is also closed.
As the floodwaters inch ever closer toward her home.
You damn know I'm worried.
Yeah.
You can't blame me, can you?
Minutes later, help finally arrives.
You'll just have to kind of pick out the most important stuff, Clara.
Well, all the canned stuff and all the fruit jars and 2 wash machines.
Yeah.
And not a moment too soon.
This is terrible.
The water is already pouring into Clara's basement.
There's a bunch of what you call them canning stuff too. Further over, Kenny.
By Sunday, Clara's entire subdivision will be underwater. And it's not easy deciding what to leave behind.
You gotta take what you want to take. It's up to you.
Gotta take it all then.
The National Guard will take her things to the armory to wait out the flood.
It's all got a memory.
And for the first time today, you might say, Clara is feeling grateful.
Are you married?
I am, yes, happily. Clara.
Good. By God, if you wasn't, boy, I'll tell you. I'd have my eye on you. That's for goddamn sure. You'd like to hear that one?
I believe that. You're squeezing my hand pretty hard.
You catch?
Dwayne Larson and his family are trying to save what they can from their home in the Smith edition of Montevideo. Most of your stuff out, or?
No, there's a lot left in there, but there's nothing we can do.
A canoe, the only way out of this neighborhood where every home has been evacuated. The National Guard is helping out in the homes that will be next to fill with water. This county road in Granite Falls is an indication of just how fast these floodwaters are rising. Now, yesterday, our photographer Dave Cheney was out here. He was able to drive this county road without a problem. It was completely clear. Now it is impassable. Not only that, there's a swift current.
The brown house right over there, we've got sandbagging going on right now that's been put up there last night, but it started seeping right up here at the beginning of this road here.
Billy Jackson of Granite Falls found himself stranded at one end of this road, unable to get to his mother's house. After making a lengthy detour, he arrived in time to help. For Marlis Fluto, the reality of leaving our home is unbearable.
Well, I'll tell you what, try not to think about it.
Throughout the area, many high school students have been let out of class trying to save homes not yet hit.
People are losing their homes, and yesterday we were out at the reservation and water is just rising so fast that it's like we can't work fast enough to get enough done.
On the Lord's Day in Granite Falls, life along the river went to hell.
Please, please, more people, need more volunteers.
It doesn't look good.
After days of sandbagging, the Minnesota River was still fighting to get out, over the dikes and through them. Pumps were falling behind, raising fears of total collapse.
The city of Granite Falls is evacuating areas.
You check over this one?
For 4 days, they willed the river away from their homes. Now they had mere minutes to leave them.
You are instructed to place only your most valuable possession.
Think about it. What are you going to move if you had to leave in 20 minutes?
The big muskie.
Yesterday brought an all-day rain. Moving day brought a blizzard.
That could only happen in Minnesota. It's crazy.
Wind chill 17 below zero. Minnesota River 10 feet above flood stage.
Hour and a half ago, it was swinging free.
Several homes have already been lost in Granite Falls. Main Street is partially submerged. Volunteers are tiring.
I think if we slow down, we'd go to sleep.
Oh, heavy one. Still, it is so hard to concede.
I wanted to stay and fight. Well, we'll make it.
Not knowing what will be left when the unholy waters recede.
Go ahead.
A lot of praying. Sometimes that's all you have left.
First they were trapped by the rising floodwaters, and then overnight it all froze solid. 17 very pregnant stock cows and 1 pony standing mutely on the only high spot for miles, a huge pile of their own manure.
Oh! Yeah, it's just something you never figured it's going to be that bad. But this is as bad as it can get, I guess.
But this old North Dakota farmer's not going to just stand by and watch his cows starve. Alan Baumgarten is way past the age when most people retire, but he loves farming and he loves his animals.
This must break your heart to see those animals out there like that,
huh? Almost, I guess. Yeah, my granddad built this place in 1914.
How old are you?
70.
Are you going to get in there now with bells of hay and trying to carry them across that?
Yeah.
There was no way of knowing how safe was the ice or how deep was the water, but Alan was prepared to risk his life to save that of his precious stock.
God.
Hungry as they were, the cows would not step on the ice, so the food had to be brought right to their feet.
Yeah, they haven't had feed for 4 days.
Alan Baumgarten has taken risks, but he says life's like that, especially for a farmer in North Dakota.
It's work, but, you know, they're all right for another day, so.
In the hazy Moorhead morning, the sun rose at 7. The river,
3'5",
rose all night. On both sides of the Red, in Fargo and in Moorhead, schools and colleges closed.
a little bit.
Students were bused to build walls of sand in the suburbs that rim the river.
You can't do this alone. It's too tough.
If enough help was once the issue, now it is just getting them there. Washed out roads, mailbox high in water, now have thick layers of ice to slow down even the boats. On a day when minutes counted, one man took more than an hour to cut through a quarter mile and ferry help back to his neighbor, Clarella Darby's house.
We're not giving up. Some people give up and they moved out, but we're going to stay with it.
The Red River, which has brought all this record water and now ice, is actually 300 yards that way. It's supposed to crest now at about 39 feet, and if it does, some of these houses, all of them built within a 100-year floodplain, aren't going to make it, even with sandbags.
The new crest prediction ain't going to leave my dike high enough. It's going to be too short by about a foot.
Pete Zimmel's basement is already taking on water.
Don't know what to do. It's your home, you know, it's gone.
His own house already lost, Dan Spriggs decided to spend his minutes today helping save his neighbors.
Oh, it doesn't stop.
for dinner time or lunch, or if you have to go to the bathroom, you know, either that or you lose it. And the problem is, one mistake, any break in the dike or anything here, something breaks down, you know, that's it. We've got to be getting out of here.
Which may yet happen in a flood that still shows no signs of being willed away. In Moorhead, Dave Wildermuth, WCCO 4 News.
Water everywhere. If you get up in the air, you can see water south of us. As far as you can see, there's water.
We are in Breckenridge South Side. This is pathetic.
Pathetic and unexpected. Breckenridge was drying out after the first round of flooding, but today overland flooding threatens homes once again, this time from the south.
The first time we got by real good. I thought we had everything going okay, but it's come back on us now, and it's really getting deep out here. Yeah, from both sides, the front and the back. So we're sandbagging here. We got a lot of good help. They're all in here digging, working.
Can you even believe it?
Oh, I can't believe it. I've never seen anything like this.
A nightmare revisited, a frantic effort to save property. Only this time, the town was caught a bit off guard. Instead of water coming from a nearby river, it pours in from farm fields.
We're approximately 1 million gallons in about 3 hours. We're not keeping up, though. It's rising an inch an hour, it seems like.
Barb Anderson recently moved back into her home. Tonight, her son contemplates moving her again.
She wants to hang around here. You know, the house means a lot to her and everything, and we just decided that it's best that she stay, and we can get her out of here if we have to.
Our heart goes out to everybody, and a million thanks to everyone who's helping us. You know, we're doing everything we can to keep the fight going.
In Breckenridge, Bob McNaney, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
All the water in the fields outside of town and at the top of your screen is pouring into Breckenridge tonight and has already swallowed up nearly 50 square blocks, forcing some 500 residents out of their homes. But floodwaters are also coming over some of the dikes.
The river's actually about a half a block back before you actually hit the river.
This is Bob Blackwelder. He gave us a tour of the devastation.
This is the 4th flood I've been through. This is the worst flood we've been through. Everybody's been evacuated on the south side completely. There's nobody living down here at all. You can't keep electricity on. You can't live here.
That's Blackwelder's home right there. He did some $20,000 of remodeling after the '89 flood, and now this.
Just got the basement completely done, and now it's completely under.
Inside Blackwelder's home, he's holding on by inches. He's already given up on the finished basement.
It's 8 feet deep right now. It's over 8 feet.
Now he has furniture up as high as he can get it and is hoping the water doesn't reach it. Fighting his second flood in a week is taking its toll.
You're so drained. You're so emotionally drained, physically drained. You get tired. You know, it's just, once it comes, it's like, you know, you lost.
While Blackwelder knows he has it bad, he knows hundreds more are in the same, boat.
Harold, how you doing? How's the house? Right up to the rafters, I'm thinking.
As bad as people have it here, many today try to rescue this dog from an ice flow, but they say it's ready to bite if you approach it.
Definitely doesn't like people. We don't know who owns it. Kind of feel real sorry for it.
Meantime tonight, crews are running to and from trouble spots, trying to build up dikes, sandbag storm sewers. And all the while, they're building a new dike down the middle of Breckenridge in hopes of saving the other half of town.
If this water gets across the railroad tracks right here and Minnesota Avenue, you'll see the north side of Breckenridge will start flooding also.
And that's the entire city?
That's the entire city then, yes.
Troy Radoff spends the day sandbagging. He's out of school because his high school is now underwater as a result of a dike breaking.
It's looking pretty bad. It's not good. I guess there's just a wall came right over from the dike that broke.
Reinforcing dikes has become as critical as building them to begin with.
Definitely frustrating for Fargo. It's a never-ending battle, and people have lost their homes after days and days of work, and they've had to end up after 2 weeks they've lost their house.
Chopper 5 shows water ready to destroy homes. The pressure on those dikes is tremendous.
We're on a mission here.
The pumps and volunteers at Harry Hawkins' house are keeping pace. The house is now surrounded by water.
We're not going to. We can't give up. It's just become, I mean, it's incredible. You just can't let it happen.
It may look like an ark, but this makeshift dike is saving a Moorhead home.
Well, it's just about holding its own. I think we're more encouraged every day and every hour, you might say, that's holding.
They find a trouble spot. Oakport Township is a small neighborhood north of Fargo-Moorhead, now swallowed by the Red River. At least 12 families are evacuating. Dan and Pat Dobrovich finally called it quits and grabbed a few important bags.
I'll get your bags for you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
They didn't realize their next ride would be in a Huey. The helicopter passes over their home on the trip to the National Guard Armory.
That was a wonderful ride. We really enjoyed that. This is being treated royally. Yeah, we did sandbag, but this came up through the
sandbagging, but we have an outside basement entrance, and that's where all the water came.
The water came from
underneath.
She says, I think I'll stay here. It's a little safer.
It was Friday morning. The river was rising rapidly, and the first evacuations had begun. Just a few days earlier, the river was predicted to crest at 49 feet. Now word had come it was going to go to 52 feet, a record crest that meant city dikes needed to go up at least another foot.
We want the ties going with the stream.
But as fast as hundreds of volunteers worked in this neighborhood, what one person called a cancer had been detected in another neighborhood. Water began pouring into an area in the southeastern part of Grand Forks. And it was clear from this point on, the river that was roaring through Fargo 80 miles south of here would be raging as it moved through the cities of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks. Population combined, 58,000.
It's heartbreaking.
A police officer was dispatched to keep sightseers back. One of the homes in that valley has special meaning for him. 250 homes will be flooded?
Probably, yes. One of them is mine.
As the water poured into this neighborhood, the sandbagging continued at a rapid clip. But many people were realizing the cancer south of them was spreading. The water was beginning to eat away at dikes that had been raised and raised again to meet the higher crest forecast.
Originally they told us 50 feet at the highest level to expect, and all of a sudden it's pouring in over on River Street.
And yes, this day the prediction would go up yet again. The river now expected to rise another foot or two. As scores of homes began going underwater, it was becoming clear by the minute the diking system might not hold. Panic began to set in. Some people began grabbing sandbags from manhole covers, people wanting to protect their own homes.
Grabbing what we could get because it's coming over our windows.
City crews began throwing up secondary dikes. Clay was being dumped in the city streets, the plan to stave off the floodwaters from spreading into other neighborhoods.
It just makes me sick. It does.
But the air raid sirens continued to sound, signaling the Red River was advancing into yet another neighborhood. Mandatory evacuations were spreading throughout Grand Forks and East Grand Forks.
It is just minutes since water crashed through a dike. Authorities try to recontain the seemingly uncontainable. Vince Taylor lives in that gray house on the corner and says it took seconds for the water to take over.
That levee that you see going out of the picture that way gave way behind our place about 3:30, and in about 45 seconds where you see that Hummer pushing through the water was about 6 inches to a foot deep in about 45 seconds, and now it's about waist level. About 4 blocks of houses are totaled.
It is a spectacular battle to watch, swallowing trucks, battering homes.
I'm 88 years old, so I'm a little too old to get shook up over this. I have seen it pretty bad, but not this bad.
We need to get some fluids out here to some real thirsty soldiers.
Soldiers scramble. They have no idea of the water status. They're just reacting.
The guards in there working at trying to evacuate others. We're bringing boats in for the areas that they can't get with their trucks.
After an hour, elderly people who couldn't make it out begin arriving in transport trucks.
Okay, you're lucky.
Oh, it was terrible over there. The water come in so fast, you just couldn't, all you could do was get out of there, you know. That's all.
They are battling the flood out south of 47th Avenue South, and I know they're still in need for sand out there.
What little information they have is from the radio. They are confused, frightened, desperately want to know more.
I see her, if she shows up.
Okay.
I'll at least tell her.
I got a daughter that's missing. I can't find her.
She's afraid it may be some time before she knows. And it will be more time before authorities know the status of all the people and all the homes across the bridge. What everyone knows is this battle is lost.
These were the streets upon which we stood last night to broadcast our stories. Sandbaggers feverishly but confidently had built up the levee another 2 feet. It wasn't enough. By 2 o'clock in the morning, the sewer water began backing up. By 3, the rising red was pouring through and over the sandbags. Downtown businesses are now awash in destruction. This furniture store, high and dry last night, is a disaster this afternoon. A bank's shrill alarm has been sounding for no one to hear for hours. No officers responding. Cars parked safely out of the way in a free lot pay the price today. Cars everywhere up to their roofs, most unsalvageable. The Red River Bridge is up to its hips in water. We float at river level above the flooded bridge deck. Traffic signals continue to flash. Go. Stop.
Well, this is pretty sad for the community. A lot of hard work, a lot of effort went into establishing these businesses. It looks like they're going to have to start all over again.
Sometime later, officials will total up the damage. It will be in the millions, if not the billions. But all the figuring will not take into account the damage to the human spirit. So proud and fierce were the townspeople last night. Today they have given up.
The houses we saw were not so much damaged or wet, they were completely destroyed. We saw dozens of homes that had been taken off their foundation, literally floating in the Red River. You can barely see the tops of city dikes, which people spent hundreds of hours building before the flood. And the waters came so quickly, they couldn't even get all the heavy equipment out of town. This basketball net shows you that the water was probably 9.5 feet deep at this spot. There was also something powerful and everywhere, but we can't show it to you. It was the smell. Gas from cars and heating oil from flooded basements polluted the water and the air. Sometimes the futility of pre-flood efforts is almost comical. You can see toys and furniture here are dry, but the deck they're standing on has floated away from the house.
Saturday, April 19th, 5:30 p.m. The beginning of the end in downtown Grand Forks. A fire that started in the basement of one building spreads to a second and a third, and then eventually to a 10th and 11th.
We literally had people hanging out the windows.
The immediate concern wasn't to save buildings, but rather save lives.
There's 2 people on the roof over here. There's 2 people on the roof.
Rescue crews and boats went building to building, finding families trapped between the flames above and the floodwaters below.
There you go.
Mom's right here. Oh, it's okay.
Thankfully, it was okay. No fire fatalities. Every life in danger saved.
So we'll have all the frequencies covered.
Okay.
Let's get to work. Let's go do it.
The impossible task of saving the buildings. That was a job just for pilots. It was a 2-pronged attack. Airplanes zeroing in on the worst flames and then dousing them with the same chemicals used on forest fires. And this awkward-looking machine, aptly named Goliath, led the helicopter assault on the inferno.
We're going to go up with the big bird here and dump 2,000 gallons of water at a drop.
God, what a mess. And for the pilots, it was a very dangerous mess. Dodging plumes of smoke while dousing the flames, and then having to dodge power lines while refilling their water buckets.
You guys are getting footage of this, I take it?
Yep.
We'd sure like a copy at the fire center.
And helping choreograph this dangerous dance was WCCO TV pilot Dale Dobich and the high-tech thermal imaging camera attached to our helicopter. Everybody else could only see the smoldering rubble. But watch, the thermal camera reacts not to light, but to heat. The white spots show what's burning beneath the debris.
There's a hot spot in that corner yet.
With Dobish directing, the other pilots take aim on those hidden fires.
Look at that hit. Boy, he's putting them in there. You're making my job real easy, Dale.
Despite the heroic efforts, 11 buildings destroyed. But the loss is about more than just buildings. It is a loss of Grand Forks history, of Grand Forks heritage. This downtown is bruised, it is battered, but it is not beaten. Hard work from the inside and financial support from the outside can combine to create a Grand Forks still true to its past, but also prepared for the future.
People are what make a community. And even though the buildings may be gone, a lot of them, the people will rebuild. And our community will be better than it's ever been.
In Grand Forks, I'm Jonathan Elias, Beyond the Flood.
They are U.S. Air Force personnel who thought they'd only be needed for an hour of sandbagging. But then, on a brief tour of downtown, they spot an even more urgent need.
Hold up! Hold up!
They were supposed to have evacuated the entire downtown. I can't believe this gentleman's still here, but he's signaling us to go around to the other side of the building.
A lone man waving a white flag, trapped in a building narrowly missed by the fire that destroyed much of downtown.
And so I think you should wait, maybe for instructions before we all just go tramping through here, because I think it might have had fire damage, and there could be, rotted wood up there. They're picking up a gentleman about 65, 70 years old, maybe. He looks to be in pretty good spirits. I hope they ask him if there's anybody else in the building.
I suppose somebody eventually would come by. I tried to flag down a helicopter to let him know I was there, but he didn't see me.
Then, a few minutes later...
Hold it. Hold on. Hold it.
Ho! Got somebody down there! Yep. Oh, back up!
This man says the water finally got too high in his home. He tried to get out in his car, but it stalled. The troops arrived just in time.
I tried to cross Washington, and I should have known better when I saw all that rushing water.
It was an eerie experience navigating down residential streets, 4 feet deep with water. There was no one in sight in this neighborhood, which only yesterday was full of families, the streets still high and dry. We felt both hope and anticipation when we finally saw the address we were looking for, a sheet on the front door.
Anybody home?
Todd Curran was still sleeping inside, but he happily awoke to the sound of the knock on the door. He locked up his home, put on a life vest, and hopped in our boat.
They got no phone, no cellular, so it was getting a little scary.
Is it hard leaving as you get back? Curran had considered taking his own boat this morning, but he feared it would be too dangerous, so he decided to stick it out.
I got a little hydroplane boat with a motor, but if I took it, then I'd had to leave it somewhere, If the boat died, it'd end up floating down the river, and I just figured I'd stay put. I'd put a sheet on the roof. I knew sooner or later the helicopter, somebody'd see me or that, if I had to. But this is really high. We've never ever, all the years, even in '79, we never had water over the hill in the back.
You said the best way to go up here?
At Terrace Drive, just go straight. Just go straight ahead, and we'll go down the coulee.
Finally, we were back on South Washington Street, where Todd Curran was reunited with his dad and brother, who were waiting there with the rescue crews.
In every flood, there are victims.
They're really scared. They don't know if anybody's coming back for them.
But none more vulnerable than those about to be visited by Raquel Aloisi.
We've got 8 cats to rescue right now.
Raquel and her colleagues are with the Emergency Animal Rescue Service.
Basically, we're the Red Cross for the animals.
Hundreds of animals left behind by owners, given mere minutes to get out of their homes.
Watch it.
The first stop does not go well.
See if you can sense if it's a deadbolt.
The owner has left no keys.
Barely rock.
And the second-story balcony is too high to climb.
We've got keys for the next one. We're just going to contact him and tell him to bring us keys.
But a few blocks away, 2 more cats are waiting. They are also hiding. Not uncommon for cats.
They're in here somewhere.
Somewhere, is under a bed.
What you doing?
Bring the evac sack.
Okay. Oh, it's okay. On me?
We did it. This is Terry Crisp from United Animal Nations. I just wanted to let you know we got your cats.
It is the moment that makes their watery journey worthwhile.
First two of the operation.
The kids will be happy, that's for sure.
Who knows, by now our building could be on fire. We don't even know. You know?
Not knowing. That's the hard part. Not knowing what happened to their homes. Not knowing where their loved ones are.
She's from La Crosse, so she doesn't really have any family here, but I have a lot of family here, and I haven't been able to get a hold of anyone. It's just, you know, I'm concerned about a lot of my family.
And not knowing what is happening just 10 miles down the highway. These are their homes, their town. But the only link they have now is newspapers and TV.
I wanted to get that one.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's Jerry Pearson's office, you know, and Larvey.
Yeah.
There's the federal building.
There you go.
The Red Cross and Salvation Army are feeding and housing more than 3,000 evacuees at the airbase. Many people can't stay anywhere else because practically everyone they know is homeless. Jessica and Tammy are classmates at the local high school. They pass the time with games and stories of the fight.
I sat like 3 days straight, and all the work we did is just everything's gone. It's like, it was for nothing almost.
Joanne Crooksey could end up calling the airbase home for 2 weeks before she can return to her real one.
The people in this part of the country are pretty hardy people, and we do what we have to do, and when we get back into it, I'm sure it's going to be devastating, but we'll do it because you have to do it.
I'm panicking.
A difficult situation. Cheryl and Dean Adams, soon to be proud parents of triplets, but a flooded Grand Forks hospital left them with no proper medical services near their home in Crookston.
These are our first children, and I'm 34 years old. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, and I'm scared to death.
That was on Tuesday.
Yep, that's one crib that I've gotten set up.
Wednesday morning,
I don't even have much voice left.
The Adams received so many calls from people who wanted to help, they finally had to take the phone off the hook. Cheryl can now rest easy. She's headed to Fargo.
I've been overwhelmed. I've found a doctor that's willing to take on my case, and he's delivered triplets before, and I've found a place to stay, a couple places that are really good options.
Oh, I was so overwhelmed this morning when I was talking to people. I couldn't stop the tears.
This is baby A, this is little girl.
One girl and two boys. Cheryl is eager to welcome them home.
I'm happy, very happy. You know, things are really looking up for me and looking up for the babies.
When Air Force One carrying the president landed in Grand Forks, it made what was already an historic flood officially an historic event. After greeting dignitaries such as Governor Carlson, President Clinton began his aerial tour. The president saw for himself what has made the lives of so many miserable.
With all the losses, I hope when this is bearing down on you in the next few days, you'll remember the enormous courage and shared pride and values and support that all of you have given each other.
Later, speaking to a crowd of thousands at the Air Force Barracks, a place that has become home to many, the president managed to lighten the mood when a light exploded.
You're rebuilding your communities. That's up there. Anybody hurt? Well, we've had a fire, a flood, a blizzard. I guess we can take it, God.
The president's tour here touched many. It left flood-weary residents with hope that when the waters go away, help will still be here.
It means a lot. It means the start of the rehabilitation, and it helps the spirit of the people. It's wonderful to have them here. I'm really moved by it.
The headline in yesterday's Grand Forks Herald was both descriptive of the city and a triumph for its newspaper. Its building was gutted, along with nearly 120 years of history recorded in its archives. By surviving to record perhaps the most devastating event in Grand Forks history, the Herald preserved for its residents the one remaining link to their abandoned community, according to editor Mike Jacobs.
Our people are scattered everywhere, and there's nothing tangible about Grand Forks anymore, except the Herald.
The Herald is depending on the facilities of the Pioneer Press, a corporate sibling 200 miles to the south in St. Paul. The Nerve Center, the newsroom, has moved about 10 miles west to the Manvel, North Dakota Public School, in what normally serves as the 7th grade classroom.
Yeah, okay. Are we close? We are getting close. We need this.
What's close is the deadline to get stories to St. Paul. The usual deadline, 11 p.m., is now advanced 5 hours. That puts even more pressure on reporters and editors dealing with the last-minute rush. Plus the late-breaking story yesterday of one more community in potential danger.
How much time do you have left to do this?
Minus 15 seconds. We should be there at 6 o'clock, but most of the stories are there. We're just sending the last ones up now.
I felt awful. We did it again under really what I thought today were the most trying circumstances.
Fatigue was clearly taking its toll. Moving and publishing a newspaper from scratch, covering a 500-year flood, and never far from consciousness, nagging worries and regrets.
Oh my God.
For most staffers here, the intense routine, the cramped quarters, all provide a distraction from the immense personal cost everyone here must pay.
You watch the coverage on TV and you watch the footage and you wish, go by my house, go down Boyd Drive so you can see what your house is doing. But at the same time, you don't really want to know. I mean, it's not something, you can't handle all of it at once. So emotionally, you just sort of put yourself on hold and get out and get the story, even though you're part of the story in a sense.
When your world is underwater and the routines of everyday life have washed away, panic, anger, and despair set in.
When you don't have information, your mind kind of goes and you fill in with the worst possible scenarios.
With the populations of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks now scattered, the information link that still holds them together is at the end of this cord that snakes across the floor of the Emergency Operations Center.
Hi, you're on KCNN, KFDM, K-Light, the Recovery Radio Network, your voice of hope.
I am trying to locate some kind of a truck that hauls water because we have our own water delivered here.
Recovery Radio, the voice of hope in a nightmare that won't go away. It is an around-the-clock source of information staffed by volunteers and announcers who before the flood worked at competing stations.
There's a lot of people that need a lot of information right now, and this is how we can help.
And the radio station is the one place they can call to get answers to questions like, where can we get drinking water? Has anyone seen my sister? Or does anybody know where I can pick up my paycheck? As the answers come in, they're filed in a computer database for quick reference later.
If it's yellow, it means that their basement is likely to be flooded.
The one question on everyone's mind, how much water is in my house?
Hi, I'm calling. I was referred to you from the EOC.
Yes,
trying to find out what the water depths are in my area and find out how bad my house is.
Yes, sir. We've had boats running through the neighborhoods and taking block-by-block addresses and information on what it looks like.
From that, they put together a color-coded map of the city so when people call, they can give them some idea of what kind of damage to expect.
A little news is a lot of good news at this point. And if they hear that they don't have water on their first floor, that's going to be a major victory.
All right, you all set then?
I'm set.
Thanks for your call.
I'm ready for the golf course.
Yes,
all right. Now you know why they call it the Voice of Hope. With photographer Steve Painovich, Jeff Bellion, Minnesota 9 News in Grand Forks.
That's super. Congratulations.
Hundreds of miles from their flood-ravaged homes, refugees from Grand Forks and East Grand Forks gathered tonight in the Twin Cities in what has become for many displaced flood victims their temporary home away from home. It's been 2 weeks since the rising Red River forced the Daniel family from their home in Grand Forks. It's been an ordeal made easier thanks to the kindness of others.
It's real stressful, you know, and you try to smile and be happy. And the Twin Cities here have just been fabulous, you know, Twins games and the Mall of America and everything. And so you can't complain. And people have just poured their heart out for us, and, you know, we appreciate everything that everyone has done.
And with thousands of flood survivors still in need of help, former residents of the Red River Valley, now living in the Twin Cities, hosted a get-together for their flooded neighbors to the north to make sure those forced from their homes are getting the help they need while they're here.
We have an employment board, a housing bulletin board, so that people can, if they need more housing or if their housing runs out in a week, that they'll be able to find secondary housing.
My place of employment, I teach, and I guess the school I was at had some water damage, so a lot of my professional things will be gone. But they were all safe.
And this gathering is also for the younger victims of the floods of 1997. On this day, kids got a chance to escape their grown-up problems and just be kids again. Hundreds of donated toys were handed out to the youngsters to replace those lost in the floodwaters.
It's just devastating. It's just a devastating situation. And we hope that in some way that we can offer something to make these children smile for a little while.
And now, look at this. It's rushing across it really fast. Who knows what it's going to be doing by tomorrow?
This is what Grand Forks looked like through the lens of Donnie Morrison's camcorder before he and his 2 young children fled the floodwaters nearly 2 weeks ago. With their home still underwater, the family is staying with relatives in the Twin Cities, but their thoughts are never far from the home they left behind. 8-year-old Haley misses her favorite doll.
But I just got her, and she cost a lot, and she might be ruined and stuff.
It's easy to get depressed over. I mean, look at all the stuff I've lost, 20 years worth. And the kids, everything that they've ever had is gone.
Despite their material losses, Morrison tries to keep upbeat and honest with his kids about their ordeal and what they've lost. Child psychology experts say that may be the best way to handle a trauma like this, especially with children.
So the best thing that a parent can do is be honest, be right up front about their own feelings, and yet keep a positive attitude that we're still in this together and we can make it.
You are really helping Dad build this wall, aren't you?
And that's the approach Donnie is taking with his kids, while 4-year-old Braun keeps busy these days helping Dad with an addition to their relative's house. 8-year-old Haley keeps occupied with video games and her cousins. It's almost like a mini vacation, but this one won't have the typical happy homecoming. But Donnie finds comfort knowing his kids will be prepared for the devastation.
But they're pretty resilient kids. They can take a lot and they do well.
It was quiet, eerily quiet. Oh, the flag was flapping proudly above the rooftop, but the rooftop was in the street. There were the birds. Off in the distance, one could hear construction equipment working to bring the city back. But here along Lincoln Drive, the eeriness came from possessions. A kiddie car there, scattered where the water had left them. A basketball, and a block away, the backboard, teetering slowly, balanced atop a fence. A tire hung from a tree trunk which had bashed through the fence. A set of steps up a tree where they'd snagged during the high water. Somebody's going to miss that trike, probably does already. Nobody'll miss that snow shovel, not for a long time. Here and there, a homeowner had come back to check things out. He won't be the last to find the door stuck shut. Water-soaked wood swells considerably. Over at 501 Lincoln Drive, Grand Forks Police Sergeant Jim Moan took time to look at his house.
Well, we haven't been back since the day we left. We left last Friday when they sounded the sirens.
It's been 2 weeks since they sounded those sirens. Time tends to get mixed up for flood refugees. And there in the middle of the street, a Bible, open to Romans, a prayer of thanksgiving. And see just above it, may Jesus Christ give you grace and peace. What gives one pause is the knowledge that we made these images in the space of about 1 block. And there are dozens of blocks, hundreds of families, and thousands of possessions that have floated away. Ken Speak, KARE 11 News, Grand Forks.
Friday is Ward 3. Today is only Ward 2.
The line stretched out the door of East Grand Forks High School.
Have patience with us.
Everyone here to get a $2,000 check from a woman they know only as Angel.
I wished I could just tell that lady thank you and God bless her. And I mean God bless her, okay?
Ronald Anderson started the line at 3 this morning.
This is history, believe me. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Say a prayer to the people who gave it.
Thank you, the lady who gave it to us.
Thank you.
And by noon, he was the first to get his check.
We're in a shelter in Crookston, and I got 4 boys and a 7-week-old baby. This really helps. The woman who did this, I'll tell you, we owe her.
Speculation about who the wealthy woman in California may be is tempered only by her desire to remain anonymous. After Angel saw the floods and then fire on TV, she left a message for Grand Forks Mayor Pat Owens.
I don't know what ever came over me to return that call, because I had probably, I'd say, 400 to 500 calls ahead, and that one just kind of snapped out at me and I returned it.
Don't ask us how tall, how short, where from. It's not going to come out of Mayor Pat and I.
Lynn and I are not politicians. We care for our people deeply.
We're just like you. When something goes right, we
do this.
Things are finally looking up in these two towns bonded in disaster, and these checks are one of the main reasons for optimism. It's the kind of immediate help people wanted from the feds, but never got. As many as 16,000 people are eligible, with priority given to those who lived closest to the river.
Glenda, good luck to you.
And we need it, don't we?
For Glenda Miller, it means a chance to start over again at 78.
My apartment is underwater, so I lost everything. Clothes, everything.
What does this money mean to you now?
It means everything. We could start anew. It's from God. I really think so.
So we just are so grateful, and we said we kept the faith, and to me this is an indication that God is looking after all of us, because now we are able to help all of you. And just our deepest heartfelt thanks go out to this woman for caring so much about us, people who she has never met.
She's been the voice of Grand Forks for the national media in press conferences and meetings, and she's been cheerleader and school principal, the one who ordered the utilities shut off, made everyone evacuate the city, and then ordered the demolition of buildings burned during the flood.
We will rebuild. We have the spirit and love in the community like you have never seen in your life.
At the same time, she's played host to a string of Washington dignitaries. City Hall reporter Liz Feder thinks Mayor Owens' compassion is what has made her so successful in managing the crisis.
While she was strong in the face of a calamity, she also, in effect, was the mother of the city of Grand Forks and very much has consoled people. In a crisis like this, being a mother, being nurturing is, in effect, what is needed, because people need some kind of reassurance that people in power care about them and that we're all going to get through this together.
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and
The 56-year-old mother of 3 became mayor just last summer, but she's long been a fixture at City Hall, serving 4 mayors over 32 years, first as secretary, then administrative assistant. The job made her well-versed in the operations of city government.
Indeed, you are our angels.
Her concern, however, is that others who don't live in Grand Forks will forget what its residents have been through, or will get tired of helping.
It's sort of like when you go to a funeral and everyone is all around you and there's a lot of activity and everybody's supportive, and all of a sudden you've lost somebody that's close to you and all of a sudden you're by yourself. And I think our people, the majority of them, are strong enough to deal with that.
Squeegees are replacing sandbags in the fight against the floods. At the end of a handle, we found Allison Ringeman. She's spending her Navy leave in the muddy basements of total strangers.
Anything I can do to help. I mean, if it happened to me, I would want anybody to come out for hours, minutes, anything's appreciated, so.
With her mother and sister, she's one of hundreds of Salvation Army volunteers giving their time to suck up sludge and sanitize walls. It is dirty and disgusting work.
We were walking in raw sewage in almost every house.
For homeowner Nancy Robarge, the water was waist deep on the main floor. everything had to go. Only a skeleton of studs remain intact.
There's no way I would have been able to do this by myself.
The row barges are just one of over 100 Montevideo families receiving the Salvation Army's help. As this massive collection of volunteers sweeps into a town, they can clean about 10 homes a day. Fatigued by weeks of sandbagging and cleanup, more volunteers will be needed as the effort moves north.
I know their faces, but I don't know their names, and I would just like to thank each and every one. I mean, I don't know how, but I'm just real glad that they were there for me.
And for the many thousands more still knee-deep in water. In Montevideo, I'm Bill Hudson, WCCO 4 News.
It's been a few weeks since the Lac Parle spilled over its banks and swallowed neighborhoods in Dawson. The floodwaters are now gone, but the river has left permanent scars on the lives of many residents in this small town.
Pretty miserable.
Tane Fisk just learned that she won't be allowed to rebuild her flood-damaged home.
Pretty upset that we can't, because it's like, now we gotta start all over and try to find something else to live in with no money. That'll be my future home forever now, because they ain't gonna let us fix our house.
With no money and now no house, this 8 by 30-foot trailer, courtesy of FEMA, will be home for Tane, her husband, and their 4 children. It's not much, but it's better than sleeping on cots inside their dirt and mold-covered house.
They just sort of flop out here to make the bed.
The last time we saw Brian Hersom, he had to use a boat to reach his house.
I think it was up to right about here. So just underneath, right about here, just underneath the ceiling.
While the floodwaters destroyed his basement, Brian is one of the lucky ones. He will be able to rebuild.
I hope it never happens again. I don't know if it ever will. And they're talking it's a 100-year flood in 500 years, so maybe it'll never happen again.
But city leaders fear the river will flood again, and next time they want the community to be better prepared. This year's flood destroyed 5 homes and damaged dozens more in Dawson. This one had to be burned to the ground.
Nothing's going to be easy and nothing's going to be done overnight.
And community leaders believe if residents want to continue living along the Lac Parle, radical changes may have to take place.
You don't think about how sorry you're going to be the next morning.
If you're the kind who looks for symbols, Berlin, Germany has nothing on Granite Falls, USA, where this weekend a wall is coming down.
Quite a wall, yeah, with probably 6 to 8 feet high.
A wall built of 500,000 sandbags and gallons of sweat.
That's a saying we say when things are going bad, we go, you look good, you feel good.
6 weeks ago, that wall looked very good.
Or maybe 1.5 to 2 feet from saving the whole town, flooding the whole town. The wall's what saved it.
But if the wall was a symbol of what was saved, Ken Bauman can show you a load of symbols for what was lost.
An office, 2 bedrooms, a living room.
It's been more than a month since Ken's wife Shirley got her first look at their basement.
Oh my goodness. That's sad.
And from that shock, they started their road back.
If you got contractors, there's only so many of them to go around, and there's so many people that need work done. In a couple of years, we'll be back to normal.
But at least the Baumans are back in their home.
I want to get in. Well, they've got a lot of swing and stuff to do, And here I am.
Clara Hersom still has much of what she owns packed in her car as she spends her 6th week in a hotel room.
That has to be all rewired, and all the plugins have got to be all rewired.
Volunteers hauled everything in her flooded basement to the dump, but Clara still can't bear to look.
I don't want to see it, kid. Because I tell you, I bet you I lost about $1,000 in that basement of all the canned stuff. That hurts, boy. That hurts.
Clara's was among 150 homes flooded out in Montevideo, 2/3 of them still empty, with as many as 10 slated for demolition, their basements being filled with the contents of the sandbags. Those sandbags, a symbol of both hope and despair, And finally, as the wall comes down, Granite Falls' symbol of liberation from the flood of '97.
Their images swirl to the surface of our memories of the flooding Red River Valley. In Durban, North Dakota, 70-year-old Alan Baumgarten risks his life to bring feed to his starving cows. 91-year-old Ella Ambule smiles bravely as she's evacuated from her Ada home. And farmer Ken Visser wonders what comes after a flood that freezes and locks his whole farm in a jacket of ice.
Anybody that farms and keeps farming has to be somewhat optimistic.
Ken and Wanda Visser lost several cattle when they fell through the ice. Calves froze to death in the pasture, and dozens of pigs were trapped and died as they tried to escape. But miraculously, a huge sow managed to keep her head above the swirling frigid water for days to survive and deliver a dozen piglets.
You know down the road that odds are that isn't going to be your worst day, and hopefully there's going to be a lot better days.
We'll have more sows in here. We'll have more, the cows will be back.
And that's what we live for, is better days, I guess.
Ella Ambule is waiting for better days. At 91, it's hard to leave your home, even with a boost from the Minnesota National Guard. So Ella, who has lived through many floods, will remember this year not for its downs, but for its ups.
It was dramatic and memorable interruption.
For an old lady.
Across the raging Red River, we found North Dakota cattle farmer Alan Baumgarten fighting a solitary battle. 17 very pregnant cows and a pony were stranded on the only high ground for miles, a pile of their own manure. Alan was determined to get them fed. It's his way of life.
God. See, my granddad built this place in 1914.
How old are you?
70.
Alan pushed, hauled and waded, carrying wet bales of hay that weighed over 100 pounds.
I figure if I do it myself, I don't know anybody anything. They can't talk about me.
Alan saved all but 2 of his cows. The survivors are feeding their calves in the spring sunshine. A new season brings new hope.
It'll be weeks, months, or even years before many recover from the disaster that occurred in the Red River Valley. But life, hard as it is sometimes, must go on, and there's no lack of faith here that tomorrow will be a better day.
It'll be a long time before life gets back to normal for people who live in the Red River Valley. But if their spirit, their courage, and their determination is any indication, they are well on their way. But they still need help. The victims of this devastating flood will be cleaning, repairing, and rebuilding for months, even years to come. That's why the Minnesota Broadcasters Association has established a fund to help. It started in May with a live telethon that brought together many familiar faces.
Good evening. Tonight you're going to see something remarkable.
All Twin City television stations coming together on a single night.
Because the floods of '97 called for major action. It's a disaster unlike anything that's ever happened in our region.
But the story is far from over. In fact, in many ways, it has just begun.
Tonight we're here to ask for your help, and we know you've been asked before.
And we thank you for what you've given so far, but we'll show you why more is needed.
The waters are receding, but the need is rising.
That day, more than $500,000 was raised. We thank you for that. And you should know that the money is already being put to good use. So many people lost everything they own. Many had no insurance. You can help them start over. You've already helped by purchasing this video. 100% of the proceeds will go directly to help the flood victims. But we hope you'll consider donating again, because even though the floodwaters are gone, the need continues to rise.
The most important thing is we have not lost our lives.
I have seen the pictures of people battling the flames of the fire in the rising floods. I have seen rescue workers working around the clock even as they lost their own homes. You have shown that when we think of our duties to one another, our own lives are better, that we're all stronger when we try to make sure our friends and neighbors are safe and strong as well. And no matter what you have lost in this terrible flood, what you have saved and strengthened and sharpened and shown to the world is infinitely better. Water cannot wash that away, and fire cannot burn that away, and a blizzard cannot freeze that away. And if you don't give it away, it will bring you back better than ever.
We will pick up the pieces when this water goes down, and eventually it will go down.